Reports are emerging that a rift is widening amid growing tension between Prince Harry and King Charles.
The decision did not come from a committee, a nervous courtier, or an anonymous palace office. It came directly from King Charles. With one carefully worded order, Prince Harry was removed from the guest lists of official royal ceremonies, private family gatherings connected to the crown, and major national events. The message was unmistakable. The king had personally closed the door on his younger son. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles knew the paper before him would change more than a calendar. Buckingham Palace, the London home and headquarters of the monarch, had prepared the confirmation in language stripped of warmth. Harry would no longer attend official royal events unless the king gave written approval himself. That restriction covered state ceremonies, national commemorations, palace receptions, and family occasions tied to the crown. The king read the final page twice. His hand stayed still before he lowered the pen and signed. An aide waited nearby, but Charles offered no explanation. He placed the pen beside the document, looked toward the window, and let silence carry what he could not say. A softer proposal had been available. It would have limited Harry's ceremonial role without excluding him completely. Charles rejected it. Across the Atlantic, Harry opened the message in California. The Duke of Sussex, a title given to him when he married and part of his royal identity, reached the line naming his father's direct authorization and stopped. Then he began again. His jaw tightened. He pushed his chair back, left the message open, and walked away without answering Meghan's question. The timing made the blow sharper. A major royal anniversary was approaching, and Harry had expected to attend. Early planning papers had included his name. Now it had vanished on Charles's instruction. No review date appeared in the final wording. No automatic reconsideration had been promised. The door would remain closed until the king personally chose to open it. William received the news in a briefing. The Prince of Wales, the title held by the heir next in line to the throne, did not smile or show relief. He closed the folder and asked one question. Had Harry already been told? The future king understood this was not simply an administrative order. It was a family fracture given official force. The public saw a sudden decision. The family knew better. One confrontation had pushed Charles beyond compromise, and the truth behind that moment was more painful than the palace statement revealed. To understand why a father excluded his own son, the story must move into the private wounds surrounding all three men. Behind the formal language were three men carrying burdens. Charles was not a monarch defending an institution. He was a father confronting the possibility that reconciliation had failed. Harry was not merely an estranged prince facing another restriction. He was a son watching his connection to royal life disappear. Between them stood William, forced to protect the crown without appearing to abandon his brother. Charles understood the choice before him. Royal events had to remain controlled, dignified, and free from battles, because every ceremony carried the authority of the monarchy. Yet the king knew the restriction would not feel administrative to Harry. It would feel like rejection from a father who had chosen duty over blood. Harry felt the loss differently. The Duke of Sussex, a title marking his place within the royal family, saw those ceremonies as links to childhood, military service, and the grandparents who had shaped him. They were not just formal occasions. They were pieces of his identity, and now those pieces were being taken away. Charles opened a desk drawer after the briefing and found a photograph of William and Harry as boys. He held it longer than intended. Then the monarch placed it face down beneath the official papers, as though hiding the image could quiet the memory attached to it. Harry spoke to Meghan in a controlled voice. He told her the order did more than keep him outside palace rooms. It erased him from family history while that history was still being written. The Duchess listened as he repeated the sentence, hearing anger give way to something heavier. William remained trapped inside the silence. Palace officials would not say whether the Prince of Wales had supported the restriction, allowing suspicion to grow around him. Some believed he had pushed for the decision. Others thought he had failed to stop it. Neither version brought him peace. William had warned Harry weeks earlier in a private message. He asked his brother not to force a confrontation with Charles during the coming royal gathering. Harry read the words as a threat, not an appeal, and the distance between them widened before either man understood the cost. Camilla entered the study after the order was signed and found Charles alone. Queen Camilla, the king's wife and senior companion, asked whether he wanted the papers removed. He answered that removing them would not change what he had done. She stayed beside him, because silence was the only comfort he would accept. The palace order cannot be understood through years of tension alone. The final break began with one invitation, one private demand, and one conversation neither father nor son was willing to forget. The crisis began 6 weeks before the palace announcement, during preparations for a remembrance ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral. Harry had been offered a family seat with no ceremonial role. He wanted permission to join the formal royal procession beside working royals. When that request was denied, a personal disagreement became a direct challenge to the king's authority. Harry understood what the procession represented. It was not simply an entrance. A royal procession, the formal order in which senior members appear at a national ceremony, showed the public who was trusted to act for the crown. Standing beside Charles and William would signal belonging. Sitting apart would confirm distance. Palace officials offered a compromise. The Duke could attend privately, enter through a side reception area, and sit with extended family. He would be present as the king's son, but not as a working representative. The offer protected the ceremony, yet stripped Harry of the role he believed his birth and military service had earned. Harry rejected the arrangement during a tense telephone conversation with a senior aide. He said being kept away from the procession would mark him as lesser than relatives beside whom he had once served. The aide repeated that the decision concerned duty, not affection. Harry answered that the public would never see the difference. Charles received the response minutes later. The king pressed both hands against his desk when told that his son would attend only with a ceremonial position. He said Harry was turning a memorial into a test of loyalty. The service honored national sacrifice, and Charles feared the dispute would overshadow the dead. Harry bypassed the palace chain of command and sent his father a message. He requested a private meeting and warned that public exclusion would cause lasting damage. Charles agreed, hoping the conversation might end the struggle. Instead, it hardened it. Harry entered Clarence House determined to be heard. Clarence House, the London residence used by Charles and Camilla, became the setting for the final break. The Duke insisted that his birth and military record gave him the right to stand in the procession. Charles replied that royal representation came from present duty, not birth alone. Harry rose sharply when the king refused to reconsider. The chair scraped across the floor and shattered the stillness. Charles remained seated and told him that walking out would not change the decision. Harry turned before leaving and said he would no longer accept invitations designed to diminish him. Charles heard no frustration in those words. He heard a warning. What began as an argument over a procession had become a struggle over who controlled Harry's place inside the monarchy. The second confrontation took place without advisors, secretaries, or family intermediaries. Charles and Harry stood alone inside a private reception room, separated by a small table and years of resentment. The king wanted a promise that royal events would not become platforms for personal disputes. His son wanted recognition that he still belonged. Within minutes, the conversation moved from ceremony and protocol to abandonment, loyalty, and betrayal. Charles had asked Harry to return the following morning because the first argument had solved nothing. The king believed clear boundaries might prevent the dispute from spreading through the family. A private reception room, a space used for confidential meetings, offered them silence. Yet both men entered carrying expectations. Harry believed his father had reconsidered. He expected the procession decision to be softened and his position restored. Charles expected to discuss conditions for future attendance. That difference poisoned the room before either man raised his voice. Harry spoke first. He accused the palace of using family whenever it demanded silence, then hiding behind protocol whenever he asked to stand beside them. Protocol, the rules guiding royal conduct and public duty, had become a wall in his eyes. He told Charles that the family wanted loyalty without offering belonging. Charles absorbed the accusation, then answered with the sentence that changed everything. "You cannot choose the crown only when it suits you." Harry's face tightened. He asked whether his father was speaking as king because he no longer wished to answer as a parent. The question struck hard. Charles gripped the back of a chair but did not sit. Harry stepped closer to the table and demanded an answer. Was he still part of the family? Or had the palace decided he was useful only when his silence protected them? Charles said family membership could not automatically grant official authority. The crown, meaning the monarchy as a public institution rather than one person, depended on trust. Then the king raised the issue neither man wanted to face. Conversations that had later entered public accounts. No royal gathering could survive if every exchange might become material for another grievance. Harry heard suspicion, not caution. Charles offered continued attendance if his son signed a written agreement respecting confidentiality and ceremonial limits. Harry refused. He called the condition humiliating, unequal, and proof that his father no longer trusted him. Harry turned and left without looking back. Charles remained beside the untouched chair as the door closed. Then the king summoned his private secretary and requested every policy governing non-working royals at official events. The argument had ended, but compromise had ended with it. Charles was now searching for the authority to ensure the confrontation could never happen again. Harry learned the restriction was real not through a public statement, but through an invitation that never arrived. A royal military commemoration connected to his years of service appeared on the palace calendar, yet his name was absent. When his office requested clarification, the answer came back in one restrained sentence. Attendance had not been authorized by the sovereign. For the first time, the king's decision became a physical absence. Harry read the message twice and placed his phone face down. The military commemoration, a formal event honoring those who served in the armed forces, mattered because it connected him to men he had known, duties he had carried, and the years when service gave him a clear place in the world. Windsor mattered too. It was not merely a royal setting. It held memories of family, ceremony, and belonging. Meghan watched him remain motionless. She asked whether the decision was final. The Duke answered that his father had made certain there was no one left to appeal to. No private seat had been offered. No separate entrance, recorded message, or informal family invitation softened the exclusion. The order had been applied completely. Harry walked to the wardrobe and opened the door. A dark suit hung ready beside the medals he had expected to wear. Those decorations, official honors recognizing military service, represented years in which duty had felt simple and personal purpose had felt real. He stared at them, touched nothing, and slowly closed the door. The silence around him widened. Several friends had previously offered to speak on his behalf, believing a private appeal might help. Once they learned Charles had approved the restriction personally, their calls stopped. One message remained unanswered. Another promised support but offered no action. Harry understood what had changed. People were no longer afraid of palace procedure. They were afraid of opposing the king. William sent a brief private message later that day. The prince wrote that he was sorry matters had reached this point, but he could not challenge a decision made to protect future events. Harry read the words carefully, then read them again. To him, the message confirmed that his brother had chosen the institution over the bond between them. Harry did not reply. Anger should have followed, loud and immediate, but something colder replaced it. He asked his staff to collect every email, message, and written communication connected to the restriction. For once, he wanted the complete record before choosing his response. The exclusion had produced the fury everyone expected. Yet the decisive shift came when he stopped preparing his defense and began confronting what continued resistance was costing him. The turning point did not happen in a throne room or through an official statement. It came during a private telephone call between two brothers who had spent years speaking through advisors, interviews, and carefully managed messages. No secretaries listened. No palace language softened the truth. William asked Harry one direct question. Did he still want a relationship with the family, or did he only want victory over the institution? William made the call after learning that Harry was gathering every message connected to the restriction. The prince contacted him without warning the palace communications team, the group responsible for managing public statements and media strategy. He wanted no prepared lines between them. Harry agreed to speak on one condition. Nothing from the conversation would reach staff, journalists, or any future public project. Harry spoke first, and the hurt came quickly. He said every new restriction made him feel less like a son and more like a problem the family wanted contained. The Duke told William that he was being reduced to one label while everything else, brother, veteran, uncle, was being pushed aside. He asked how anyone could call that protection. William did not interrupt. Then the future king admitted something Harry had not expected. He said he had spent years fearing that private pain would become another public battle. The prince confessed that he no longer knew how to speak naturally around his brother, because every sentence felt dangerous before it was even finished. Silence took control of the call. William asked whether winning against the institution would truly make Harry feel restored. The Duke said nothing for several seconds. When he finally answered, the anger had left his voice. He admitted that he no longer knew what restoration would look like. William then shared what he had learned through a private family briefing. Charles had remained alone for nearly an hour after signing the order. The king had also refused every attempt to make the restriction sound like someone else's decision. He wanted responsibility to remain with him. Harry listened differently after that. The pain did not disappear, but the need to strike back began to weaken. When the call ended, he instructed his team to pause a prepared statement condemning the palace. The order remained. The wound remained. Yet the next attack did not come. That choice did not heal the family, but it preserved one fragile path back from destruction. Charles noticed the silence. When no interview, accusation, or public reply appeared, the monarch understood that his son had chosen restraint. The brothers had not reconciled, but Harry's decision transformed an approaching explosion into a public reckoning over what separation now meant. By morning, the private fracture had become a global spectacle. Television networks interrupted their schedules, newspaper presses rushed out new editions, and crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace. Yet one image captured the crisis more powerfully than any headline: the palace gates opening for a royal procession, while an empty place remained where the king's younger son might once have stood. Buckingham Palace released a formal statement confirming the restriction. The sovereign, meaning the reigning monarch who holds final authority over royal attendance, would now have to approve Harry's presence at every official event. The palace said the policy followed a review of ceremonial responsibilities, but the careful language could not hide the human cost behind it. The debate split almost instantly. Some commentators called the decision necessary protection for the monarchy, arguing that official ceremonies could not survive repeated personal conflict. Others described it as the moment a family rupture became institutional, permanent, and impossible to dismiss as another private disagreement. London woke to one fictional front page that seemed to speak for everyone. The Daily Chronicle printed a black-and-white photograph of Charles and Harry walking together years earlier, beneath 4 brutal words: "The King closes the door." Commuters stopped beside newspaper stands, staring at the image longer than the story beneath it. Crowds gathered behind the barriers at Buckingham Palace. One man held a sign praising Charles for choosing duty. Beside him, a woman placed flowers beneath a photograph of William and Harry as children. Their gestures carried opposite messages, yet both acknowledged the same loss. Charles watched the coverage from a palace sitting room. The king saw the front page appear on television and lowered the volume before the presenter asked whether he had sacrificed his son to protect the crown. He did not turn the screen off. He simply watched without answering. Harry faced his absence from California. The Duke watched footage of the military commemoration until the royal party appeared. Then he turned away before the moment where he had expected to stand. Meghan remained nearby, understanding that silence had become both his shield and his punishment. Harry's refusal to launch an immediate public attack changed the coverage. Even critical broadcasters acknowledged that he had chosen restraint over escalation. The decision survived the storm, but its meaning grew heavier. William followed the coverage from his own office, knowing the empty place beside the family would now be examined as closely as every occupied one for years to come. When the headlines faded and the crowds dispersed, one reality remained. The monarchy had protected its boundaries, but Charles, Harry, and William had each surrendered something deeply personal. There was no dramatic reversal, no final invitation, and no carefully staged reunion. King Charles allowed the restriction to stand. Prince Harry remained absent from official royal events, and William continued preparing for a future in which duty could no longer depend on family harmony. The crisis ended not with reconciliation, but with acceptance. The crown had drawn a boundary, and everyone involved now had to live with its cost. Charles refused to amend the policy after the public storm. The crown, meaning the monarchy as an institution rather than one individual, would now admit Harry to official events only through the king's personal authorization. No automatic invitation returned. No quiet exception weakened the order. The decision was final because Charles believed uncertainty had already caused too much damage. Harry accepted the immediate reality with painful restraint. The Duke stopped seeking entry to ceremonies under conditions he considered degrading, and turned his attention toward the life he had built outside the institution. He preserved his independence, but the price was severe. The world that had shaped his childhood, service, and identity would continue without him. Charles carried the burden differently. The king kept the signed order in his private files and refused to hide behind advisors. He understood that history would judge the decision as his alone. Protecting royal events had brought control, yet it had also confirmed a rupture between father and son. William mourned without reversing course. The prince believed clear boundaries were necessary, but he never treated the outcome as victory. The future king had gained stability for the monarchy, while losing another measure of trust with his brother. Duty had succeeded, family had suffered. Late one evening, Charles opened the drawer containing the childhood photograph. He turned the picture upright and studied both sons. This time, the monarch did not hide it beneath official papers. He closed the drawer gently, accepting that love and authority could exist together, without healing the wound between them. Harry's silence became the final act of restraint. His choice not to retaliate did not repair the relationship, but it ended the immediate cycle in which every injury demanded another public attack. The monarchy protected its boundaries. The family accepted its loss. The palace doors remained closed, the order remained unchanged, and the conflict reached its conclusion. Charles defended the crown. Harry accepted life beyond it. William carried the grief between them. No one truly won in the end, but the monarchy moved forward, permanently altered by the price all three men had paid. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.